Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on a bit of a linguistic adventure.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah, we're sifting through this big list, over 100 advanced English words, the kind you see for GRE prep.
Ah, those lists. They can be intimidating.
Totally. But our mission isn't homework, okay?
Yeah.
It's more like uncovering hidden tools in English. We want to pull out the really insightful, useful words.
Right, the ones that can genuinely sharpen your understanding and enrich how you express yourself.
Exactly. And without that dry, dusty vocabulary drill feeling.
Precisely. Because these aren't just like random, obscure terms. They're high-level words you actually encounter.
Where, typically?
Oh, academic writing, professional emails, sophisticated discussions. Knowing them really gives you an edge.
An edge how?
Well, it lets you grasp complex ideas more easily and, importantly, articulate your own thoughts with much more precision.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Forget just staring at lists.
Yeah.
We're going to explore the subtle power these words have.
The nuances.
Yeah, the nuances. How they unlock deeper meaning and let you communicate with real impact. It's like upgrading your linguistic toolkit.
A very good way to put it.
So let's dive into our first group. These are words for handling opinions and beliefs.
Okay. And what's fascinating here is how language lets us convey, different levels of certainty or doubt.
Right. Take the first one. Adamant.
Adamant. The definition is basically refusing to be persuaded, completely inflexible.
And the example.
She was adamant about not attending the party no matter what her friends said.
So you could just say she really didn't want to go. Simple enough.
True.
But adamant. That paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like this unshakable conviction. Final.
Absolutely. It conveys a much stronger sense of resolve than just being, say, firm.
What's the difference there between firm and adamant?
Well, firm suggests a strong position, sure.
Yeah.
But adamant implies, it often implies a complete closedness to any more persuasion. It's that extra layer, very resolute.
Okay, got it. Now contrast that with ambivalent.
Ah, ambivalent, meaning having mixed feelings, torn.
The example.
He felt ambivalent about the job offer. The salary was good, but he didn't like the location.
Yeah, you can almost feel that internal tug of war.
Exactly. It's not a clear yes or no. It perfectly captures that weighing of competing feelings.
What kind of situations usually bring that feeling on, being ambivalent?
Often, yeah, it's when there are clear positive and clear negatives. Makes it genuinely hard to decide. It highlights that lack of a clear preference, that inner conflict.
Makes sense. Then we have biased.
Biased, showing an unfair preference or prejudice.
The example sentence about the judge.
Right, removed. Due to a perceived biased opinion. That really underscores the importance of impartiality, doesn't it?
Hugely important, especially in positions of authority.
It makes you think about how critical it is to recognize our own potential biases,
Definitely. Where do biases tend to creep in without us realizing?
Oh, everywhere. Cognitive biases are, common. We might favor info that confirms what we already think, confirmation bias. Or give too much weight to first impressions.
So being aware is the first step.
Awareness is key to striving for more objective views. But on a more positive note, there's candid.
Candid, truthful, and straightforward.
Yes. The example. Her candid remarks about the project's flaws were appreciated. This shows how directness, when it's constructive, can be really valuable.
How is candid different from just being, honest?
Good question. Honest is just not lying. But candid often implies a certain openness, a frankness, maybe even about tricky subjects, speaking freely.
Without holding back. Okay. But then we get a word with a more negative spin.
Obstinate.
Obstinate. Stubbornly refusing to change your opinion.
The example of despite all the evidence, he remained obstinate. That really hits home. It's that resistance to reason.
Exactly. It's more than just firm. It's like digging your heels in.
Yeah. Obstinate carries that feeling of being unreasonable, unwilling to even consider new information, even when it's staring you in the face. Rigidity of thought.
So quite a range in this first group.
Definitely. From adamant conviction to ambivalent doubt, bias versus fairness, and candid honesty versus, obstinate stubbornness.
Okay, let's move to group 2. This is about relationships and comparisons. First up, analogous.
Analogous, meaning comparable in certain respects, similar in a specific way.
The example given is really helpful here.
The atom in the solar system one.
Yeah, the structure of an atom is analogous to the solar system. It really clicks. Why is using analogies so useful for understanding things?
Right. What's powerful about them is how they bridge the gap, between what you know and what you don't know yet.
Oh, I see.
By pointing out similarities to something familiar, it makes complex or abstract ideas much more accessible, helps build a mental framework.
Okay. Next is corroborate.
Corroborate. To confirm or support something, back it up.
The example. The witness's testimony helped corroborate the defendant's alibi. Shows why you need backup.
Exactly. The importance of having multiple independent sources confirming the same thing.
Why is that so vital, say, in investigations or research?
Well, it just adds so much weight and credibility. One piece of evidence may be questionable.
I'd be wrong, yeah.
But when multiple sources all point the same way independently, it really strengthens the case, makes it much harder to dismiss.
Got it. Then juxtapose.
Juxtapose. To place things side by side, usually to compare or contrast them.
The example about the art exhibit.
Right. The artist's new exhibit juxtaposes modern art with classical sculptures. You can almost picture it.
Yeah, it creates a strong visual. What effect are artists usually going for when they juxtapose things?
Well, by putting contrasting things together, they can really highlight the differences, maybe create a dialogue between them.
Make you see both in a new way.
Precisely. It can spark surprising insights, maybe a deeper appreciation for both elements.
Interesting. Okay, last in this group, tantamount.
Tantamount, meaning equivalent in seriousness or effect.
The example. His refusal to cooperate was tantamount to admitting guilt.
Wow.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
It is. Very strong comparison.
What does tantamount imply that, say, just similar wouldn't?
Tantamount suggests the two things are basically the same in their impact or consequence. It's not just a little bit like it carries pretty much the same weight.
So it really emphasizes the significance.
Absolutely. A powerful way to underscore the gravity of an action or even inaction.
All right, cluster 3. This is about navigating challenges and difficulties. First word, arduous.
Arduous, meaning involving a lot of effort. Strenuous.
The example. Climbing the mountain was an arduous task. Just reading it feels tiring.
Haha, yeah. It conveys that exertion well.
So what makes a task arduous rather than just, difficult?
Arduous really emphasizes the sustained effort, often the physical or mental strain involved over time. It suggests something long and really challenging.
Okay, then there's convoluted.
Convoluted, extremely complex, difficult to follow.
The example. The plot of the novel was so convoluted that I had to read it twice. I think we've all been there with a book or movie.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling of being tangled up in complexity, that's what convoluted captures.
What makes something convoluted? Like a plot or an explanation?
Often it's just too many interconnected parts, maybe unnecessary twists and turns. It makes it hard to follow the main thread, Feels overly intricate, maybe confusing on purpose sometimes.
Right. Next. Debilitate.
Debilitate, to make someone weak and infirm, to seriously weaken.
Example. The long illness had debilitated him. It really highlights that resulting frailty.
Yeah, that loss of strength, like a strong word.
What kind of impact does being debilitated suggest?
It suggests a really significant reduction in capacity, physical or maybe mental. It often affects the ability to just do everyday things, a profound weakening.
Okay. We also have impediment.
Impediment.
Yeah.
A hindrance or obstruction, something that gets in the way.
The example. His lack of formal education was seen as an impediment. It shows how obstacles can block progress.
Exactly. Stops or slows you down.
What are some common sorts of impediments?
Oh, they can be anything, really.
Yeah.
Lack of resources, money, time, maybe not enough knowledge, personal limitations, or external things like bureaucracy or societal barriers, anything slowing you down.
Makes sense. And then onerous.
Onerous, meaning burdensome, involving heavy obligations.
The new regulations imposed onerous requirements. You can almost feel the weight.
Yes, it has that heaviness to it.
What makes something onerous?
It suggests a burden that's heavy and, frankly, unwelcome. It often involves a lot of effort or responsibility or cost, difficult, and feels oppressive.
But it's not all gloom. We also have mitigate.
Ah, yes, mitigate, to make something bad less severe, less serious, or less painful.
Example. Measures were taken to mitigate the effects of the economic downturn. This feels more proactive, hopeful.
It is. It's about taking action to lessen harm.
What are some ways you might mitigate a bad situation?
Well, you could try to reduce its intensity, maybe limit its scope, or provide remedies to counteract the negative effects. It's about damage control, essentially, lessening the blow.
So this group gives us words for all sorts of difficulties.
Right, from the really strenuous, the arduous, to the complex and convoluted, the weakening effect of debilitate, things that block us like impediments, heavy burdens like onerous requirements, and thankfully, ways to lessen the harm mitigate.
Okay, group 4. This one looks at the unexpected and unusual. First is anomaly.
Anomaly, something that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. An outlier.
The example. The sudden drop in temperature was an anomaly. It really stands out because it's different.
Exactly. It's noticeable because it departs from the norm.
What makes something an anomaly versus just, like, unusual?
An anomaly usually implies a significant departure. It's not just slightly different, it's statistically unexpected, a real outlier.
Got it. Then capricious.
Capricious, given to sudden and unaccountable changes in mood or behavior. Unpredictable.
The weather in the mountains is often capricious. That's a perfect example. You never know what you'll get.
Precisely. It speaks to that unpredictability, that lack of a consistent pattern. Fickle.
What kind of effect can capricious behavior have on other people?
Well, it creates uncertainty, doesn't it? Makes it really hard to rely on or plan around that person or situation. It's the opposite of dependable.
Definitely. Next, counterintuitive.
Counterintuitive. Contrary to intuition or common sense expectation. Seems wrong, but it's actually right.
Example. It was counterintuitive to think that eating more could actually help you lose weight. Those ideas that make you stop and think.
Exactly. They make you double take.
Why are counterintuitive ideas often so powerful?
Because they challenge our existing ways of thinking. They can lead to genuine breakthroughs, new understandings, force us to look beyond our first assumptions.
Good point. And then there's fluke.
Fluke, a surprising piece of luck, a chance occurrence.
Winning the lottery was a fluke.
Yeah, that captures it. Pure, unexpected luck.
Right. It emphasizes the randomness. What's the difference between a fluke and something just unlikely?
A fluke really stresses the element of pure chance. There's no predictable cause, no skill involved, just accidental good fortune. Or sometimes bad fortune, I suppose.
Okay. Last in this group, sporadic.
Sporadic, occurring at irregular intervals or only in a few places, scattered or isolated.
The sporadic rainfall made it difficult to plan outdoor events. That unreliable, patchy nature.
Exactly. No predictable pattern, on and off.
What are some other things that tend to be sporadic?
Maybe intermittent Wi-Fi signals, unpredictable interruptions, activities that happen now and then but with no set schedule, that sort of thing.
So this cluster gives us words for things that don't quite fit the mold.
Yeah, the anomalies, the unpredictable capricious stuff, surprising counterintuitive ideas, lucky flukes, and irregular sporadic events. The outliers in life.
All right, our final main group, this one's hefty, actions and outcomes. We start with appease.
Appease. To pacify or placate someone by giving in to their demands, trying to make them less angry.
Example. The manager tried to appease the disgruntled employees with a bonus. It's that strategy of giving something to calm things down.
Exactly. Pacification.
What's the potential downside of trying to appease someone?
Well, while it might work short term, just constantly appeasing might not fix the actual problem, and it could even, encourage more demands later. A temporary fix, perhaps?
Right. Next, bolster.
Bolster. To support or strengthen, prop up.
Example. The evidence presented in court helped bolster the defendant's case, making it stronger.
Reinforcing it.
How might you try to bolster your argument in a discussion?
You could bring in more evidence, maybe expert quotes, stronger logical points, anything to reinforce your position and make it more convincing.
Okay, then catalyst.
Catalyst, a person or thing that precipitates an event or change, an agent that speeds things up.
The new policy acted as a catalyst for much-needed reform. It highlights that trigger role.
Yes, the thing that initiates a significant shift, gets the ball rolling.
What are some common catalysts for, say, social change?
Often it could be a specific event, maybe an influential leader, or some new information that really galvanizes people and creates urgency.
Clinch. What's that mean?
Clinch. To confirm or settle a contract or bargain definitively. To secure a victory.
The final goal of the game helped clinch the championship, securing the final outcome.
Exactly. It seals the deal.
So to clinch something means...
What? It means you finalize it. Leaves no doubt about the result. It's that decisive moment you've got it locked down.
Got it. Then coerce.
Coerce. To persuade an unwilling person to do something by using force or threats.
The suspect was coerced into confessing. That emphasizes the lack of free will.
Absolutely. Force or intimidation is involved.
What makes coercion different from just persuading someone?
Coercion removes free will. Consent isn't there. It relies on fear or force, not reasoned agreement. A crucial difference.
Definitely. Debunk.
Debunk. To expose the falseness or hollowness of a myth, idea, or belief.
The documentary aimed to debunk several popular myths, revealing the truth.
Showing something isn't true.
Why is it important to be able to debunk things?
Oh, hugely important, especially now. With so much information flying around, it's vital for critical thinking, stopping misinformation, separating fact from fiction.
Okay, disregard.
Disregard, to pay no attention to, ignore.
He chose to disregard the warnings. A deliberate act of ignoring.
Yes, consciously deciding not to pay attention.
What are the risks of choosing to disregard important info?
Well, it can lead to bad outcomes, right? Missed opportunities, mistakes, maybe even danger, depending on what you're ignoring.
True. Emulate.
Emulate, to match or surpass a person or achievement, typically by imitation.
He tried to emulate his father's success, following a model.
Yes, trying to achieve something similar or even better by copying someone admired.
Are there any, ethical things to consider when trying to emulate someone?
That's interesting. While learning from successful people is good, you probably want to maintain your own authenticity, right? Not just be a carbon copy. Inspiration, maybe, not blind imitation.
Good point. Okay, then we exacerbate.
Exacerbate. Make a problem, bad situation, or negative feeling worse.
His refusal to acknowledge the issue only served to exacerbate the conflict. This is the opposite of mitigate, sadly.
Yes, exactly.
Making things worse, not better.
What kind of things often unintentionally exacerbate a conflict?
Getting defensive, maybe denying there's a problem, bringing up old issues.
Yeah.
Things that just add fuel to the fire.
Yeah, garner.
Garner. To gather or collect something, especially information or approval, often through effort.
Her research helped garner widespread support, accumulating something positive.
Right. Earning or gathering respect, support, information.
How might someone garner respect?
Usually by demonstrating competence, acting with integrity, making valuable contributions. You earn it, you garner it over time.
Obfuscate. That sounds tricky.
Obfuscate. To deliberately make something unclear, obscure, or unintelligible. To muddy the waters. The lawyer's convoluted explanation seemed designed to obfuscate the truth. Intentional confusion.
Exactly. Trying to hide something by making it hard to understand.
Why would someone try to obfuscate?
Usually to mislead, avoid scrutiny, cover up something unfavorable. It's a tactic to create confusion.
Okay. We also have placate, similar to appease.
Very similar. Placate means to make someone less angry or hostile, often by making concessions, trying to calm them down.
The example, the manager offered a discount to placate the upset customer. Another way to smooth things over.
Right.
Is there a subtle difference between appease and placate?
Maybe slightly. While both aim to reduce anger, placate sometimes feels more about immediate short-term satisfaction, getting someone off your back, perhaps. Appease might sometimes imply dealing with a deeper grievance, maybe bigger concessions. It's subtle, though.
Okay. Undermine.
Undermine. To lessen the effectiveness, power, or ability of something, especially gradually or insidiously. To weaken from below.
The constant criticism was meant to undermine her confidence. That subtle erosion.
Exactly. It's often a gradual process.
What are some ways confidence can be undermined subtly?
Constant nitpicking, belittling comments, maybe creating an atmosphere of doubt or fear. It chips away at self-assurance.
Wait, underscore.
Underscore. To emphasize something, to highlight its importance.
The teacher used several examples to underscore the importance of following instructions, drawing attention to what's key.
Precisely. Making sure people get the main point.
How can you effectively underscore a point, say, in a presentation?
Using visuals, maybe repeating the point clearly, using strong examples, a change in tone, ways to make it stand out.
Unearth.
Unearth. To find something in the ground by digging. Or, more metaphorically, to discover something hidden, lost, or kept secret.
Archaeologists unearthed ancient artifacts, bringing something hidden to light.
Exactly. Discovering what was concealed.
Can unearthing information ever have, unexpected results?
Oh, absolutely. Revealing hidden truths can change everything, historical understanding, power dynamics. It can definitely stir things up.
And finally, in this big group, revamp.
Revamp. To give new and improved form, structure, or appearance to something. A significant overhaul.
The company decided to revamp its marketing strategy. Sounds like a major change.
It does. It suggests a significant improvement or restructuring effort.
Why might a company revamp a strategy?
Maybe the market changed, customer needs evolved, performance was poor. Lots of reasons to undertake a major refresh or revamp.
Wow, that was a lot of actions and outcomes.
It was a big group.
And beyond those clusters, there's still quite a few other interesting words on this list. We probably don't have time for a super deep dive on each one.
No, but maybe we can quickly mention some, just to give a flavor.
Good idea. So there's cognizant, basically, aware, confound to surprise or confuse, conspicuous, easily seen, noticeable.
Construe how you interpret something. Copious meaning abundant, lots of it. Deference showing respect, especially to an elder or superior.
Denigrate to criticize unfairly. Discern to perceive or recognize something, often subtly. Dissonance, a lack of harmony or agreement.
Docile, easy to manage or control, submissive. Embellish to make something more attractive, or maybe exaggerate a story. Enigma, something mysterious or puzzling.
Esoteric, understood by only a few with specialized knowledge. Eulogy, a speech praising someone, usually after they've died. Exemplary, serving as a perfect model.
Expedient, convenient, practical, maybe even self-serving. Finesse, delicate skill or subtlety. Fledgling, new, inexperienced, like a young bird.
Fluctuate to rise and fall irregularly. Frivolous, not serious. Trivial. Idiosyncrasy, a peculiar habit or feature.
Immutable, unchanging over time. Impervious, not allowing fluid to pass through or unable to be affected by something. Impetuous, acting quickly without thought. Impulsive.
Inadvertent, unintentional, accidental. Incongruous, out of place, not fitting in. Ingenious, clever, original, inventive.
Innocuous, harmless. Insidious, proceeding gradually but with harmful effects. Sneaky. Juncture a particular point in time, often a critical one.
Laudable, deserving praise, commendable. Lethargic, sluggish, lacking energy. Lull, a temporary interval of quiet or lack of activity.
Makeshift, serving as a temporary substitute, often improvised. Mired, stuck in difficulty, like being stuck in mud. Myopic, short-sighted, lacking foresight.
Nascent, just coming into existence, beginning to show potential. Nuance, a subtle difference in meaning or expression. We talked about that.
We did. Overshadow, appear much more important or prominent than something else. Plausible, seeming reasonable or probable. Believable.
Polarizing, causing division into opposing groups. Pragmatic, dealing with things sensibly and realistically. Practical.
Precarious, uncertain, dangerously likely to fall or collapse. Precursor, something that comes before another, a forerunner. Predisposed, inclined, or liable to something beforehand.
Presumptuous, failing to observe limits of what's permitted or appropriate, overconfident. Pristine in its original condition, unspoiled.
Prolific, producing many works. Abundant. Prudent, acting with care and thought for the future. Wise.
Quintessential, the most perfect or typical example of something. Redundant, no longer needed. Unnecessary repetition. Respectively, referring back to things in the order they were mentioned.
Reticent, reserved, not revealing one's thoughts easily. Rife, widespread, full of something, usually bad. Rudimentary, basic, elementary.
Savor, enjoy, or appreciate something slowly and fully. Scrupulous, diligent, thorough, and extremely attentive to detail. Ethical.
Sparse, thinly dispersed or scattered. Subsides, become less intense or severe. Succinct, brief, and clearly expressed.
Surmise to guess based on incomplete evidence. Tangential, diverging from a previous course or line. Erratic, off-topic.
Timely done or occurring at a favorable or useful time. Opportune. Transient, lasting only for a short time. Temporary.
Travesty, a false, absurd, or distorted representation of something. Trivial, of little value or importance.
Ubiquitous, present, appearing, or found everywhere. Unconscionable, shockingly unfair or unjust. Not right.
Unorthodox, unconventional, contrary to what is usual. Vestige, a trace or remnant of something disappearing or no longer existing.
Volatile, liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. Warranted, justified, or necessary. And finally, winsome, attractive, or appealing in a fresh, innocent way. Charming.
Whew. Okay, that's quite the list. Each one really does offer a specific shade of meaning.
Absolutely. They enrich both understanding and communication.
So wow, that was a deep dive indeed. To sort of recap, we've explored a whole bunch of these advanced words, looked at their definitions, and crucially, how they work in context.
Right. And the key thing isn't just memorizing them, is it's appreciating how they give you more precision, a more nuanced way to grasp and talk about complex ideas.
Exactly. By, consciously trying to use some of these words, you're not just sounding smarter.
No, you're actually honing your ability to engage with difficult concepts and express yourself with more clarity, more impact.
And that's valuable everywhere, right? Reading a report, listening to a lecture, even just having a more thoughtful conversation.
Absolutely, in countless situations.
So maybe here's a final thought for you to mull over. think about how intentionally using even just one or two of these nuanced words, maybe adamant or mitigate or juxtapose in your next conversation or the next thing you write, how might that subtly shift how your message lands?
That's a great question. What new shades of meaning can you now bring out?
Exactly. It's about unlocking that richer dimension of English, isn't it? One carefully chosen word at a time. So, ever feel like you're trying to understand something complex, but you just keep hitting more and more info?
Oh, definitely. And it feels like you're actually getting further away from, really grasping it.
Exactly. Like you're trying to find a path, maybe through a really dense forest.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well, that's what we're here for. Welcome to the deep dive. We try to be your shortcut to understanding what really matters.
Exactly. We take all that information, which can be, let's be honest, overwhelming sometimes.
Totally.
And we try to pull out the insights that actually illuminate things.
The core stuff.
Right. The core knowledge, those surprising details that, make things click.
Those aha moments we all love.
Yeah, those satisfying aha moments. And hopefully we do it without getting you bogged down in unnecessary jargon or complexity.
And today we're diving into a real classic, actually, for anyone looking to build their English vocabulary. 504, Absolutely Essential Words, the 6th edition.
Yes, a familiar one for many learners.
You shared a pretty big chunk of excerpts with us. Lots of lessons, word lists, quite a bit to work with.
Yeah, and our goal today really is to explore these bits and pieces and see what they tell us about, how language learning actually works, especially vocabulary. And we'll look at some specific words, their nuances.
And how they're presented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we want to connect this back to you, the listener, and how you learn best. Make it useful, but also, kind of interesting too.
Definitely engaging, hopefully.
Yeah.
And just so you know, what we're looking at here in these excerpts, it's not just definitions.
No, not at all. We've got example sentences, full passages using the words.
The words in use sections.
Right. Plus exercises like fill in the blanks, matching.
And those spotlight on parts, I found those really fascinating. The word history stuff.
Oh, yeah, the etymology. This has a whole other dimension. Okay, so where should we start?
Well, maybe let's look at the big picture first.
Yeah.
Like the book's whole approach to learning words.
Good idea. What stands out, I think, is how much it relies on context. You see that again and again.
The words in use thing you mentioned.
Exactly. It's not just throwing words at you. It shows you how they work in, actual communication.
Which makes sense. Words don't mean much on their own, do they? It's how they connect.
Precisely. Meaning comes from usage, from the words around it.
Yeah, like with the word abandon. It's not just the definition desert, leave behind.
Right.
You see it used when someone abandons their family or abandons an idea. It makes the meaning, the feeling of it much clearer.
Absolutely. It makes it stickier. And then there are exercises like fill in the blanks.
Active recall, right.
Exactly. That's a really powerful learning technique. You have to pull the word out of your own memory based on the context clue.
Much better than just reading the definition over and over.
Way better. It actually strengthens the mental connections for that word.
And I like that creativity exercise too, where you make your own sentences.
Oh.
Yeah, because that really forces you to think, okay, how does this word actually work? How do I use it right?
It internalizes the meaning and the usage. So for you listening, if you want that deeper understanding,
Which is what our listeners appreciate.
right, this kind of approach gets you way beyond just knowing a basic definition. It's about comprehension.
Okay, so let's make this more concrete. Let's look at some of those actual words. Maybe start with lesson 1.
Sounds good. Lesson 1 gives us, let's see, abandon, keen, jealous, tact, oath, vacant, hardship, gallant, data, unaccustomed, bachelor, and qualify.
That's a real mix of words, some common, some maybe less so. Anything jump out at you there?
Well, we talked about abandon. The definition is clear, deserting, leaving.
With those strong examples.
Right, but the spotlight on section adds so much. Learning it comes from French, meaning to put under another's control.
Wow.
And seeing its connection to words like ban, bandit, contraband.
That's fascinating. It shows how words aren't just static things. They have histories.
Exactly. Language is like a living museum, in a way. These details make the word much more memorable, too, not just intellectual trivia.
Totally. Then you have something like keen. Pretty straightforward, sharp, eager, intense.
Yep. And the example is simple. A keen knife does the job.
And hardship. Something hard to bear. The book uses Lincoln overcoming hardships.
Powerful example. Very concise. Really lands the meaning.
Same with vacant, empty, not filled. Vacant lot, vacant seat. Easy to picture.
So these first words build a good foundation, and you mentioned the matching exercise earlier.
Right. Matching the word to its definition, another way to reinforce it.
It gets you engaging with material in a different way.
Okay, so moving to lesson 2. The words here feel a bit more dramatic. We have conceal, dismal, frigid, inhabit, numb, peril, recline, shriek, sinister, tempt, and wager.
They do have a bit more punch, some of them. To conceal, to hide.
The examples were pretty vivid. Concealing love or a corpse.
Yes. And notice the sentence about the cleverly concealed money. They had to abandon the search.
Oh, nice. It links back to lesson 1. Clever.
Yeah, it subtly reinforces those connections. Then there's dismal. Dark and depressing.
Dismal weather.
Yeah.
But also the example about the senator's friends tactfully avoiding bad election news.
Right. It shows the word's use in different situations, even social ones, tactfully avoiding something dismal.
That brings in tact from lesson 1 as well.
It does. See how it weaves together.
Okay, what about sinister? That one always sounds bad. Evil, wicked, frightening.
And the examples match. A sinister plot, a sinister-looking person, very evocative.
But the spotlight on for sinister was wild. Latin for on the left.
Isn't that something ancient beliefs about the left side being unlucky or evil?
And that history is still baked into the word's feeling today. Amazing.
It really makes you think about where these connotations come from. It adds so much depth.
Then you got shriek, scream. Pretty direct.
Yeah, the maid shrieking at the corpse, someone fleeing with a shriek. Very clear imagery.
And tempt, trying to get someone to do something, like that banana split tempting you off your diet.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And the book uses that words in use passage, right? The midnight shriek in the cemetery.
Exactly. It pulls these words together into a little story.
So you're not just learning a list, you're seeing them interact, create an atmosphere.
Which brings us neatly to the next point, really. Exploring those relationships and nuances between words.
The context thing again.
Yes, and the spotlight on sections are key here. We saw it with abandon and sinister. That etymological depth is gold.
It really enriches your understanding beyond just the surface meaning.
Definitely. And you see words pop up again later, maybe used slightly differently.
Like how peril shows up in lesson 2.
Yeah, with the boatman shrieking at the waterfall. Instant sense of danger. It connects the word peril to a feeling and experience.
Makes it much more memorable than just seeing danger as the definition.
Absolutely. And remember the dismal election reports example, using the word tactfully there.
Right, from lesson 1.
It highlights that vocabulary isn't just about knowing words, it's about knowing when and how to use them. Social awareness, choosing the right word for the situation.
So this book clearly covers a lot of ground. The excerpts went way beyond just lessons 1 and 2, right? Up to lesson 38.
That's right. We obviously can't detail every single word from all those lessons.
So you'd be here all day.
Yeah. But the important thing is that the pattern continues. New word lists keep coming.
And the same types of exercises.
Exactly. The fill in the blanks, the matching, the words in use passages, they're consistent throughout, reinforcing that contextual learning approach.
Did you see any interesting examples from later lessons? Just to give a flavor.
Sure. Let me think. Lesson 12 had words like fertile, heir, majestic, dwindle, surplus, and traitor.
Okay, traitor. That's a strong one.
Yeah, defined as someone who betrays their country or a friend. And the example sentence was something like, don't call him a traitor unless you can verify the charge.
So it emphasizes the seriousness, the weight of using that word.
Exactly. It shows the book keeps introducing significant vocabulary with practical, context-rich examples right through the later lessons.
And it's not just piling on new words, is it? I noticed there were review sections, too.
Oh, absolutely crucial. After every few lessons, like after lesson 6 and then again covering lessons 7 to 12, you get these word review sections.
Keeps things fresh. Prevents you from just forgetting the earlier stuff.
And they're smart about it. It's not just simple repetition. They mix it up.
How so?
Well, you might have to match synonyms or find antonyms opposites.
Like that example pairing approach with leave or expensive with cheap.
Precisely. That really makes you think harder about the word's meaning and its relationship to other words.
What else was in the reviews?
Using the words in new contexts, like filling blanks in mock newspaper headlines or letters. Again, forcing you to apply the knowledge, not just recall a definition.
So bringing this all together, especially for you, the listener, who wants that deep understanding.
Right, for the learner.
It seems the real power of this 504 words approach is that focus on context and active engagement.
Definitely. It's designed to push you past just, rote memorization.
Which doesn't really stick long-term anyway.
Not usually, no. True understanding, the kind that leads to those aha moments.
The ones you appreciate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That comes from seeing how words work in different situations, making connections, actively using them.
And it was genuinely surprising, actually, how even studying what seems like basic vocab can lead you down these rabbit holes of word origins.
The etymology stuff, like sinister in the left hand.
Yeah. Or abandon and control. It adds unexpected layers, cultural connections.
It makes language feel alive, doesn't it? Not just a set of rules and lists.
So if we were to summarize the key takeaway from this deep dive,
I'd say it's that learning vocabulary effectively is much richer when you focus on context, use active recall through varied exercises, and maybe even explore those etymological roots.
it's just a more effective and honestly more memorable way to learn than staring at lists.
Couldn't agree more. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Oh, okay.
Thinking about those word origins, like sinister, how might really understanding that hidden history, the etymology, actually change how we perceive words, or even how we choose to use them in our daily lives?
That's interesting. Does knowing the origin add a weight or a nuance we didn't notice before?
Maybe. Or here's another angle. Think about all the different learning strategies in 504 words. The context, the recall, the creative sentences, the reviews.
Okay.
What techniques from that approach could you maybe adapt or borrow for your own learning projects? Whatever topic you're diving into next, not just vocabulary. Ever feel like you're just staring at a page of academic text and it looks more like, I don't know, an alien language than English?
Oh, absolutely.
You see these huge, complex words popping up, and suddenly understanding what should be interesting feels, well, like a Herculean task.
It's a really common frustration, actually, that specialized vocabulary used in academic writing, it could definitely feel like a barrier sometimes.
Well, today on the deep dive, we're not backing down from that challenge. We're going to take a close look at academic vocabulary itself. We want to understand what makes it tick, and how you can navigate it with hopefully a bit more confidence.
Yeah, our goal isn't just defining words one by one. We want to explore the underlying structure of academic language, kind of peel back the layers.
Right.
We want to show you how getting a handle on a core set of words can actually unlock a much, much wider field of meaning.
Exactly. And for this exploration, we've gathered some really valuable resources. First up, we have the Academic Word List, or you'll hear it called the AWL. It's a list of 570 words. A linguist, Averil Coxhead, put it together back in 2001.
And what's so interesting about the AWL, I think, is how it was made. It wasn't just Coxhead's opinion, like these words feel important.
No, not at all.
She analyzed millions, literally millions of words from actual academic journals, textbooks, you name it, across a huge range of subjects. The goal was to find the words that pop up most frequently, regardless of the specific field.
So it's like the essential toolkit for academic language, really.
Pretty much, yeah. A solid foundation. And building on that, we also have something called the Academic Word Family List.
Okay.
This takes those 570 key AWL words and shows us their network, their related forms, the whole family, so to speak.
Ah, okay. And to give us an even broader picture, we're also looking at a couple of other lists, vocabulary lists, specifically designed for exams like the TOEFL and GRE.
Right. We got the Prep Scholar TOEFL list. That one has 327 important words. And then there's the Manhattan Prep GRE list, which is bigger, about 1,000 words.
And what's really striking when you look at them together is how often these test prep lists overlap with the AWL or sort of expand on it.
Definitely. There's a lot of crossover. So our mission today really is to pull out the most useful insights from all these resources. We'll use the AWL as our anchor point, our foundation.
Makes sense.
And then we'll connect it to the TOEFL and GR lists where it makes sense, trying to reveal some important patterns and relationships between these words.
And speaking of relationships, one of the core ideas that really jumped out, especially from that ultimate TOEFL vocabulary list source, is this idea that words aren't islands. They're not isolated units. They exist within families, sharing core meanings.
Exactly. That's a key principle. Understanding one word in a family can give you a really significant head start in understanding the others.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit more. This concept of word families.
Yeah, so what's fascinating here is the idea of a head word. You can think of it as the root of the family, the primary form of the word, usually the simplest form.
Okay, the head word.
And the academic word family list then shows how this head word can sort of develop into different grammatical forms. You get nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, but they're all connected by that central meaning.
Right. And the example of abstract from the TOEFL list really brings this home, doesn't it?
It does.
You see abstract listed as an adjective, like an abstract idea, but also as a verb to abstract something, and even as a noun, like the abstract of an article.
Yeah. And then it branches out even further. You see abstraction, which is the noun for the concept or process. Abstractor, maybe someone who writes abstracts, and even words like abstracted or abstractedly. It can look a bit intimidating when you see them all listed out like that.
Yeah, a little overwhelming at first glance, maybe.
It might seem that way initially, but the real power, the key insight, is recognizing the connection between them.
Right.
So if you understand that abstract as an adjective means something existing as an idea, not physically, then you've got a good base. You can infer that abstraction is probably the process or state of being abstract.
Yeah.
And abstractor, well, that likely relates to the person doing it.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The TOEFL list gives this crucial piece of advice.
Which is?
Don't try to sit down and memorize every single variation in every word family. That just sounds incredibly inefficient, right?
Oh, totally. That would be a nightmare. Instead, the focus should really be on grasping the core meaning of the headword. Get that solid.
Get the headword down first.
Exactly. Once you have that solid foundation, you can often make a surprisingly accurate, educated guess about the meaning of its relatives, especially as you get more familiar with common linguistic patterns, like suffixes.
Which leads us perfectly to our next point. Those sometimes overlooked but incredibly important little additions at the end of word suffixes.
Yes.
The TOEFL list mentions bound derivational suffixes. Now that sounds pretty technical.
Yeah, it does sound a bit jargony.
Yeah, but what's the key takeaway? What does that mean for someone just trying to build their vocabulary?
Well, think of these suffixes as powerful clues. They often signal a change in the word's job, its grammatical function. They tell you if it's likely a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb.
Ah, okay. So they give you grammatical hints.
Exactly. And they can also subtly tweak the meaning. The TOEFL list gives some helpful groupings. For instance, it points out how adjective endings like, say, terical often have a related ally form, like historical and historic, or economical and economic.
So something methodical carries a similar kind of meaning to the idea of method. Even if we don't really use methodal often, it's about seeing that shared root and the general flavor the suffix adds.
Precisely. Recognizing the family resemblance. And it's also useful to notice how a suffix like allynail can sometimes pop up as a noun ending too, often indicating an action or process. Think of refusal. That's the act of refusing.
Right, or arrival.
Good one, yeah. Similarly, the list notes that suffixes like allanization or allanation often simplify down to just allanation when they form a noun.
Okay, like organization from organize or communication from communicate.
Exactly. You see that experiencing ending. You know it's likely a noun referring to the act or result of the verb.
Now, there's a really efficient pattern highlighted in the notes that I found interesting. The suffixes buricism and ist.
Ah, yes, those are fantastic examples of efficiency in language.
They seem to carry a lot of meaning all by themselves, don't they?
They really do. What's remarkable about eticism and est is how consistent they are. You add ist to almost any root word, and you create a noun that means a believer in or practitioner of something.
Like artist, scientist, socialist.
Exactly. And then you add s-ism to the same root, and you generally get the noun meaning a doctrine, practice, system, or school of thought.
Impressionism, capitalism, feminism.
Right. It's an incredibly efficient system. Recognizing this pattern means you can instantly get a handle on the general meaning and the grammatical function that it's a noun of loads of potentially unfamiliar words.
It really does. Imagine you encounter a new word ending in isism or ist. Even if the root word is totally new, you immediately have a strong clue about its meaning. That's powerful.
Very powerful. And the list also highlights other common adjective suffixes like is, and isical, which we touched on. They generally mean something like characterized by or related to.
So words like cultural, spatial, historical, they all share that sense of connection or having the quality of the root word.
Correct. Understanding these common suffixes just adds another layer to your ability to decode academic language.
Okay, so we're starting to see how these word families and suffixes work together. Now let's bring in those other vocabulary lists we mentioned, the TOEFL and GRE ones. It's really interesting to see how these core AWL words keep showing up there too.
Yeah, that overlap is, it's really telling. It underlines just how fundamental these AWL words are to general academic English. You're going to encounter them pretty much everywhere in academic settings.
Take a word like abundant, for instance. It's right there on the Prep Scholar TOEFL list, defined as present in large quantities.
Which makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
Academic writing often deals with significant amounts of data, evidence, research findings. Things are often abundant.
Exactly. And then there's accumulate. It's on the AWL, and it's also on the Prep Scholar list, meaning to gradually collect.
Which directly mirrors the academic process itself, doesn't it? Gathering information, building knowledge bit by bit through research.
Yeah, it does. Then you have advocate. It appears in both the AWL and the Prep Scholar list as to publicly support. And the noun form, advocacy, is so central to academic work, presenting arguments, defending ideas.
And the Manhattan Prep GRE list also includes advocate, defining it as speak or argue in favor of. So slightly different wording, but the same core concept. It just reinforces its importance.
We see a similar thing with ambiguous. Prep Scholar says having several potential meanings, unclear and difficult to understand. Manhattan Prep defines it as not clear, hard to understand, open to having several meanings or interpretations. Again, very similar ideas.
And that highlights a key academic skill, right? The need for clarity, for precision, and the ability to critically analyze language to avoid those ambiguities.
Definitely. And even a seemingly simple word like alter from the AWL, just a verb meaning to change.
Yeah.
It connects to these broad academic concepts of change, modification, development that are discussed across so many fields. And look, Manhattan Prep even includes alteration, the noun form.
Right, a clear relative.
Yeah.
It shows the concept is important. And think about analyze. That's a core AWL word.
Absolutely fundamental.
Now, the verb analyze might not be explicitly listed on the Prep Scholar or Manhattan Prep list we looked at, but the idea of analysis, the noun form, is completely embedded in what those tests require.
Oh, for sure. You can't succeed on the TOEFL or GRE without being able to analyze information.
Exactly. Success fundamentally depends on your ability to break down, interpret, and evaluate information. So the concept is crucial, even if the exact verb form isn't on every single list.
It's quite striking, isn't it? Seeing these same core words or their direct relatives popping up across different lists, all aimed at academic success, it really drives home their importance.
It really does. It's like these lists are collectively saying, look, if you want to operate effectively in an academic environment, whether it's reading texts or taking exams, you really need to get comfortable with these words.
It feels like a powerful reminder that focusing your vocabulary study on these core AWL words gives you a real strategic advantage. You're not just randomly learning words.
Precisely. You're targeting the high-frequency, high-utility vocabulary.
Okay, now, while understanding word families is clearly super helpful, the TOEFL list does include a bit of a warning sign, doesn't it?
Yes, a necessary caution.
It reminds us that just because words are in the same family, it doesn't mean all their meanings will be closely related or obvious.
This is a really crucial point to remember. You can't just assume. Just because words share a root doesn't automatically guarantee a direct, predictable semantic link across all forms.
And the example they use is conduct, right?
Exactly. Conduct is a perfect illustration.
Most people probably think of conduct first as meaning behavior, like someone's personal conduct.
Right. That's probably the most common meaning in everyday life. However, conduct also means to transmit energy, like how metal conducts heat or wires conduct electricity.
Okay, two quite different meanings there.
Very different. And as the TOEFL list points out, related words like conduction or conductivity, they clearly relate to that second meaning, the transmitting energy one.
Not usually related to behavior at all.
Nope. So the takeaway is context is absolutely critical, king, really. Even when you recognize a headword or a familiar root within a word, you still need to pay close attention to how that specific word is being used in the sentence, in the paragraph, to figure out the intended meaning. Don't just jump to conclusions based on the family connection alone.
Got it. Always check the context. So we've explored the power of headwords, the clues you get from suffixes, and the reassurance, really, of seeing this core academic vocabulary pop up consistently across different important word lists. But let's bring it back to the listener. What does all of this actually mean for you? Why should you invest time in getting to grips with the AWL and word families?
Well, fundamentally, this understanding directly tackles that initial feeling we talked about, being overwhelmed by academic language.
Right, the alien language feeling.
Exactly. By focusing your efforts on these core, high-frequency AWL words, maybe around 570 of them, and learning to recognize their common variations, you're essentially building a really robust toolkit for dealing with academic texts.
So it makes the whole process less daunting.
Much less daunting, hopefully. You'll start to see the patterns. You'll be able to make more informed guesses about unfamiliar words, and ultimately feel more confident tackling complex material.
And let's not forget those big standardized tests. A strong grasp of the AWL and its related vocabulary, well, that's going to directly help your preparation for exams like TOEFL and GRE, isn't it?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
You're guaranteed to encounter these words frequently in the reading passages, the listening sections, everywhere. Knowing them well is a huge advantage.
So it's practical for exams, practical for reading.
And ultimately, I think it's about building confidence. When you understand the fundamental building blocks of the language used in academia, you feel more empowered to tackle challenging articles, to dive deeper into your subjects, and just navigate that whole academic world with greater assurance.
Absolutely. Okay, so to sort of wrap up our deep dive here, what are the main takeaways we want people to remember about academic vocabulary?
Okay, first, that academic word list, the AWL. It's an invaluable starting point, seriously useful. It represents that core set of words you'll meet again and again across all sorts of academic fields.
Right, focus there first.
Second, understanding the concept of headwords and learning to recognize common suffixes, those ol, oration, extation, oldest endings we talked about. It's like having a decoder ring. It unlocks the meanings of many related words without you having to memorize every single one individually. It's efficient.
Yeah, work smarter, not just harder. And the third point.
And third, crucially, always remember context. While word families are incredibly helpful, context is king. Be aware that words, even within the same family, can have multiple, sometimes quite different meanings, like conduct.
Okay, great summary. So by focusing on these core academic words, understanding their families, but always checking the context, you can definitely navigate complex texts more effectively and hopefully feel significantly less overwhelmed by all that new vocabulary.
Precisely. And maybe that leaves you with an interesting question to ponder. How often do you actually notice these core academic words cropping up in your everyday reading or listening? Maybe even in places you wouldn't immediately think of as academic, like news articles or documentaries.
That's a great point. And following on from that, what new connections can you maybe start to see between the different forms of these words now, like seeing analyze and then noticing analytical or analysis used later?
Yeah. And perhaps the biggest question to think about is this. How might making a conscious, focused effort to understand these headwords and their common variations fundamentally change the way you approach learning new subjects? It can really open up new pathways for understanding and ultimately for growth. Welcome back. So we've all had that experience, right?
Yeah.
You're reading something and the language just feels a little, well, flat. This list we're looking at today from Miscellaneous English actually kicks off right there, pointing out how standard English can get monotonous if you're really aiming for, mastery.
It really can. And it makes you think about the power of having more linguistic tools available.
Exactly. And for someone like you listening, who's always keen to get knowledge quickly and thoroughly, a bigger vocabulary isn't just about sounding smart.
No, definitely not. It's really about unlocking more precise understanding and expression, too. It's like having a wider range of colors, You can paint a much more detailed picture, whether you're reading something complex or trying to get a subtle point across.
Right, a more nuanced picture. So, okay, our mission today is basically to explore this pretty cool list. 500 normal words paired with their more advanced versions, all from Miscellaneous English.
Yeah.
We're going to see what these comparisons really tell us about, leveling up how we understand and communicate.
And what's great about this specific list, I think, is how it directly highlights those subtle but often really significant differences in meaning. It pushes you to think beyond just basic synonyms and consider the specific context where a more nuanced word could really add impact or clarity.
Okay, let's get into it then. The article actually outlines some pretty compelling benefits of building this kind of vocabulary. It talks about enhanced imagination and retention. How does that work? How do fancy words boost imagination?
Well, it's fascinating, actually. A more specific word can spark a much more vivid mental image. Think about happy versus, say, jubilant.
Okay.
Happy is fine, it's general. But jubilant, that paints a picture of this overflowing joy, almost like a celebration, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
And that stronger image is just more likely to stick in your mind. It helps you understand and recall the situation or the feeling much better. It makes the memory more distinct.
That makes sense. Then there was this point about enhanced reflexes, which honestly seemed a bit weird at first glance. Reflexes.
Yeah, that one's interesting. It's probably not talking about, physical reflexes.
Right.
Think of it more like mental agility. If you have a broader vocabulary, you just have more options ready to go. So that can lead to quicker word retrieval, maybe more fluent speaking or writing. It's like having a really well-organized mental filing system. You can grab the exact word you need faster.
Gotcha. It's like having the right key immediately instead of fumbling around for it.
Okay.
And the article also mentions long-lasting memorization and an inspiring learning experience. That resonates.
Totally.
If you're really engaging with language like this, seeing the power in subtle differences, you're probably going to remember more and feel more motivated, right?
Absolutely. The act itself, discovering and using more precise language, it can be inherently rewarding. You feel like you're growing linguistically.
Yeah.
And that feeling fuels more learning, deeper engagement.
Okay, let's look at some actual pairs now, maybe group them by theme. First up, the intensity of feelings. We've got love versus words like adoration, cherish, idolize. What are the shades of meaning there?
Well, the key is definitely the increasing intensity, but also the specific type of feeling. Love is, foundational. Adoration implies this deep respect, maybe admiration. Cherish adds a layer of valuing something, protecting it.
Right.
And idolize, well, that's almost like worship, isn't it? Think how different those would feel. You wouldn't use idolize in the same context as simple love, usually.
No, definitely not. Okay, then there's hate next to abhorrence, abhor, despise, loathe. These all sound pretty strong and negative.
They are, but again, subtle differences. Abhorrence is really a feeling of intense disgust. To abhor something is to feel that disgust.
Okay.
Despise suggests looking down on something, contempt, while loathe implies this deep, really intense aversion. Each paints a slightly different shade of negativity.
And moving to happy, wow, the list explodes here. Jubilant, ecstatic, exuberant, blissful, gleeful, radiant, joyful, even over the moon. There's like a whole spectrum of happy.
Exactly. It's a great example. Happy is the baseline, but jubilant often has that triumphant feel. Ecstatic is like overwhelming joy.
Right.
Exuberant is lively, enthusiastic. Blissful, that's perfect, serene happiness. Gleeful has that playful edge. Radiant suggests it's showing outwardly. Joyful is a general delight. And over the moon, well, that's pure idiom for extreme happiness. Context is everything. Describing a kid's birthday versus a national victory.
You'd use different words, yeah. Okay, flip side.
Yeah.
Sad. We get melancholic, despondent, disconsolate, forlorn, desolate. These sound quite heavy.
They are quite heavy. Melancholic often has that thoughtful, pensive sadness. Despondent suggests you've lost hope. Disconsolate means someone is beyond comfort. Forlorn carries that sense of being abandoned, lonely, and desolate implies this profound emptiness, like a barren landscape, but for feelings.
Wow, yeah. Very different shades. And last one for feelings, angry. Alternatives are pissed off, wrathful, furious, irate, indignant. Interesting how the formality shifts here, too.
That's a really important point, register or formality. Pissed off is obviously very informal.
Very.
Whereas wrathful sounds almost biblical, or at least very formal, often implying a righteous anger. Furious is just intense, maybe uncontrolled rage. Irate is a more formal way to say really annoyed. And indignant is it's anger because you feel something is unjust.
Right, that sense of injustice is key for indignant. So choosing depends heavily on who you're talking to in the situation.
Precisely. Okay, let's switch gears. How about size and scale? Big gives us colossal, gigantic, enormous, substantial, massive. You can almost feel the size increasing.
Yeah, you really can. Colossal, gigantic. Those sound absolutely huge.
Exactly. Immense. Enormous is also very large. Substantial implies considerable size, maybe also importance or amount. And massive often carries a sense of weight along with the size. Think describing a skyscraper versus, say, a substantial donation.
Right. Different connotations.
Yeah.
And for small, we have diminutive, petite, minuscule, all tiny but different flavors.
Yeah, slightly. Diminutive just means smaller than usual. Petite is often used for people, suggesting something attractively small. And minuscule is extremely small, like almost too small to see.
Okay. Now, speed and movement. Walk can become stroll or traverse. Very different feelings there.
Oh, completely. A stroll is leisurely, probably pleasant. Traverse, though, implies moving across something maybe with difficulty or over a long distance, like traversing a mountain range.
Why not just pop into the shops?
Exactly. And run gives a sprint, a specific short burst of speed.
Right. And fast itself, we get expeditious, rapid, fleet, prompt. Nuances again. Expeditious highlights speed and efficiency, getting something done quickly.
Rapid is just quickness, generally. Fleet often suggests light, swift movement, like fleet of foot. And prompt means doing something without delay, punctual.
Got it. And the opposite, slow, has languid, sluggish, leisurely, ponderous. Each slow for a different reason.
Pretty much. Languid suggests a relaxed slowness, maybe from heat or tiredness. Sluggish implies heaviness, low energy.
Like Monday mornings.
Exactly. Leisurely is relaxed, unhurried, time isn't an issue. And ponderous suggests slow and heavy, maybe clumsy because of weight or difficulty.
Okay, shifting to qualities and characteristics. Noisy can become raucous, boisterous, deafening, cacophonous. That's quite a range of loud.
It is. Raucous is loud and rowdy, maybe harsh sounding. Boisterous is noisy, but often in a cheerful, energetic way.
Like excited kids.
Yeah. Deafening is simply extremely loud, and cacophonous specifically means a harsh, jarring mix of sounds unpleasant.
Right, like bad experimental jazz sometimes.
Or a busy street corner. And the opposite, quiet, offers serene, taciturn, hush, tranquil, hushed. Lots of peaceful vibes here.
Mostly, yeah. Serene and tranquil definitely imply peace, calmness.
Taciturn is different, though. That describes a person who doesn't talk much.
Ah, okay. Person specific.
Right. Hush is usually a sudden silence, and hush just means very quiet, maybe subdued.
We could probably spend all day on this list.
Easily.
But maybe just a couple more key pairs. Good has so many options. Superb, excellent, commendable, outstanding, remarkable. Really shows how many ways there are to praise something.
It does. Superb, excellent, general high praise. Commendable means it deserves praise, like a good deed.
Right.
Outstanding means it stands out exceptionally good. And remarkable suggests it's noteworthy, maybe unusual in a good way.
And bad predictably has strong alternatives too. Deplorable, atrocious, inferior, deleterious, detestable. None sound good.
Not at all. Deplorable is like shockingly bad. Atrocious often implies wicked or extremely poor quality. Inferior is just lower quality. Deleterious means harmful or damaging. And detestable means it deserves intense hatred or disgust.
Even simple concepts like smart and stupid. For smart, you get profound, intelligent, astute, ingenious, savvy, different kinds of smarts.
Exactly. Profound suggests deep insight. Intelligent is general cognitive ability. Astute is shrewd, perceptive. Ingenious is clever, inventive. Savvy implies practical know-how.
And for stupid, well, the alternatives are pretty blunt. Imbecilic, obtuse, inarticulate, vacuous, dim-witted, dense.
Yeah, and this brings up an important point, especially with words like stupid and its synonyms.
What's that?
Well, you need to think about the impact. Just because a word like obtuse sounds more advanced, is it really the best choice?
Right. It could sound harsh or pretentious.
Exactly. Sometimes a simpler word is more effective and maybe even kinder. You don't want to use advanced vocabulary just to show off, or worse, to be unnecessarily cutting.
That is such a vital point. Context is absolutely king here, isn't it?
It really is. Using overly formal or obscure words in a casual chat can just sound weird or create distance.
Yeah, people might not understand you or just think you're trying too hard.
Right. The goal should be choosing the most effective word for your meaning, your audience, and the situation. And sometimes that's the straightforward, normal word.
We should also quickly touch on the idioms in the list. Things like very rarely becoming once in a blue moon.
Yes, or wasting time versus faffing around.
Right. It shows that advanced English isn't just single words. It's also about embracing more figurative, colorful language.
Definitely. Idioms add color, they add cultural flavor, they can often express an idea more vividly than a literal phrase.
But you need to know how to use them correctly.
Oh, absolutely. That requires a deeper feel for the language, the nuances, the culture. You got to sprinkle them in randomly.
So as we start to wrap this up, what's the main takeaway you'd want people listening to get from this deep dive into vocabulary?
I think the fundamental thing is just appreciating the incredible richness and versatility within English. Working to expand your vocabulary isn't just about sounding smarter or more impressive. It's really about gaining access to a wider spectrum of expression.
And understanding.
And understanding, yes.
Yeah.
Achieving a more nuanced grasp of the language itself. When you consciously choose a more precise word where it fits, you add depth, you add precision, you add impact.
And like the article suggested, this whole process, this journey, can actually make learning more stimulating. It can improve how well you remember things.
Exactly right. It encourages you to be more attentive to language, doesn't it? To really notice the subtle shades of meaning.
Yeah.
And to make more deliberate choices in how you express yourself.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. Think about one or two of those really common normal words you use all the time. Maybe good, or walk, or say. Now, consider the more advanced options we talked about today, or others from the list. Try consciously swapping one in, just once or twice, where the context feels right.
Yeah, experiment a little.
Exactly. And just notice the effect, not just maybe how others react, but how it feels to you. Does it change your own understanding? Does it paint that picture more clearly? It's a small thing, but it can really highlight the power packed inside the English language. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into English vocabulary, trying to enrich it a bit.
Yeah, we've got two really interesting lists here. One is geared towards the GRE exam, quite academic.
Right, the tough stuff. And the other, more about like making your communication pop.
Exactly. More about impact in everyday speech. So our kind of mission today is to sift through these, pull out the words that really boost fluency, help you understand more complex things, and just express yourself better, get beyond the basics.
Okay. And we're using the 100 plus GRE words list from Espresso English, and also the 60 impactful advanced English vocabulary words from Story Learning. So 2 solid sources.
Definitely. And it's interesting right off the bat, isn't it? The different vibes. GRE feels formal, academic.
Yeah, needed for complex arguments, maybe dense reading passages.
While Story Learning seems focused on, making your daily chat more vivid, more effective.
So we might see different kinds of words, different flavors maybe.
I'd expect so. Which leads to the big question, I guess.
Why bother? Why learn all these advanced words when, basic English gets you by?
Well, Story Learning has that great example, saying, I was elated versus just, I was happy.
Right. It's not just sounding smart, is it? It's about being more precise, more powerful with your meaning, capturing the level of happiness.
Exactly. And beyond just expressing yourself, it massively helps with understanding things.
Comprehension.
Yeah. When you hit complex texts or someone's making a really nuanced point, knowing those finer words, it's like having the right key to unlock it.
Makes sense, especially thinking about those GRE reading sections.
Yeah.
You need that vocabulary.
And Espresso English also mentions confidence, which is maybe less obvious.
How so?
Well, if you feel you have the words to say what you really think, especially complex thoughts, it just naturally makes you feel more self-assured.
I can see that. Plus, it helps with writing, right? More detailed, more sophisticated writing. Useful everywhere.
Totally. Professional stuff, creative stuff. And of course, if you're doing exams like TOEFL or IELTS, it's a huge plus, a direct link to potentially higher scores.
Okay, so let's get concrete. What are some examples from that GRE list?
All right, first one that jumps out is adamant.
Adamant, okay.
The example sentence is, she was adamant about not attending the party.
So really stubborn about it. Unshakable.
Precisely. You could just say she didn't want to go, but adamant tells you how strongly she felt. That conviction.
Yeah, adds that extra layer. Okay, what else?
Ambivalent. This one's common. He felt ambivalent about the job offer.
The mixed feelings thing.
The salary was good, but he didn't like the location. Exactly. Ambivalent captures that inner conflict much better than just he wasn't sure.
It's more specific. I like analogous too.
Oh yeah, that's a great one for explaining things.
The example they give is an atom being analogous to the solar system. Like, it's a useful comparison.
It really is. It helps make something complex clearer by linking it to something familiar, like you said, a mental bridge.
Okay, another one.
How about anomaly?
Anomaly. Sounds like something unusual.
That's it. A deviation from what's normal or expected. The sudden drop in temperature was an anomaly.
So, more formal than, that was weird.
Kind of, yeah. It signals something noteworthy, something that stands out from the pattern. Concise, too.
Gotcha. And appease.
That one implies trying to calm someone down, often by giving them something. The manager tried to appease the disgruntled employees with a bonus.
Right, satisfying demands to lower the tension.
Then you have arduous.
Arduous.
Sounds tough.
It means demanding great effort. Climbing the mountain was an arduous task. You feel the difficulty in the word itself.
Yeah, definitely paints a picture of hard work.
And how about benign? Often used in medicine, right?
Like a benign tumor, meaning harmless.
Exactly, a really important distinction. Then there's biased, having an unfair preference, like the judge example.
Right, a conflict of interest making them biased.
And bolster, to strengthen or support something. The new evidence bolstered their case in court. So, making the case stronger. These words add precision, don't they?
They really do. Think about candid.
Oh, I like candid. Means honest, frank.
Yep. Her candid remarks about the project's flaws were appreciated. It highlights that valuable, straightforward honesty.
Even when it's tough to hear. And capricious.
That's about sudden, unpredictable changes, like capricious mountain weather.
Or someone's mood, maybe. Very changeable.
Exactly. It captures that unpredictability. What about catalysts?
Catalyst, like in chemistry, something that starts a reaction.
Yeah, but used more broadly, too. An agent of significant change. The new policy acted as a catalyst for much-needed reform.
So it causes the change.
Yeah.
Powerful word. And clinch.
That implies settling something decisively. That final goal clinched the championship.
Ah, like securing the win. Finality.
Moving on. Coerce. That one's stronger.
Sounds like forcing someone.
It is. Persuading through force or threats. The interrogation example highlights that seriousness.
Okay. And cognizant.
Just means being aware of something. Investors need to be cognizant of the potential risks. It suggests informed awareness.
Right. Knowing the risks involved. What about condoning?
That's about accepting behavior that's generally seen as morally wrong. The company stated that it does not condone any form of discrimination.
Setting a moral line. Important. And confound.
To cause surprise or confusion, often because something defies expectations. The startup's rapid success confounded all expectations.
So it puzzled everyone. And conspicuous.
Easy to see, stands out. Her bright red jacket was conspicuous in the crowd, very visual.
And construe. That's about interpretation.
Exactly. How you interpret something's meaning. His silence was construed as agreement, meaning isn't always stated outright.
Right, you have to figure it out. Some words just sound complex, like convoluted.
Yeah, like a convoluted plot in a book. Extremely complex, maybe unnecessarily so.
Twists and turns everywhere. And copious.
Means abundant, lots of something. He took copious notes during the lecture. Emphasizes the large quantity.
Got it. Corroborate. Sounds legal-ish.
Often is. It means to provide evidence that supports or confirms something. Witness testimony corroborated the victim's account. Adds weight.
Crucial for verifying facts. What about counterintuitive?
Something that goes against what you'd naturally expect. It's counterintuitive, but sometimes eating more fiber can actually help with weight loss.
Seems wrong, but it's right. Okay, lots of useful words here.
Definitely. We also see words describing negative states, like debilitate.
To make someone weak. The long illness debilitated him.
Exactly. And debunk, exposing something as false, like debunking myths.
Useful for critical thinking. Deference.
Showing respect, usually to someone superior or older. He showed deference to his mentor's advice.
A kind of respectful submission. And the opposite may be denigrate.
Yeah, that's unfair criticism, putting someone or something down unfairly. Common in politics, sadly.
Discern.
To recognize or perceive something, often something subtle or difficult to see. She could discern the faintest details in the painting.
Picking out the fine points. And disregard.
Simply ignoring something, like disregarding warnings when skiing, can have bad consequences.
Right, don't do that. Dissonance.
A lack of harmony can be in music, causing unease or between ideas or beliefs. Cognitive dissonance, for example.
Conflicting ideas causing mental discomfort. Okay. Docile.
Easily managed or controlled. Submissive. The puppy was surprisingly docile during training.
A calm puppy. And embellish.
Adding details to make something sound better or more interesting, sometimes exaggerating. He tended to embellish his vacation stories.
Making it sound grander than it was.
And emulate. To imitate someone, often out of admiration, aiming to be as good as or better than them.
Like young artists emulating their heroes. And enigma.
A mystery, something hard to understand or explain. The disappearance of the ancient civilization remains an enigma.
Puzzling. Esoteric. Sounds specialized.
It is, understood by only a small number of people with special knowledge. The lecture on quantum mechanics was quite esoteric.
Not for everyone, then.
Definitely not. Eulogy is specific, too.
A speech at a funeral. Right. Praising the person who died.
Correct. Exacerbate means to make a problem or situation worse.
Like, refusing to acknowledge the issue only exacerbated the situation, making it worse by ignoring it.
Exactly. And exemplary.
Means serving as a perfect example, like model behavior. Her work performance was exemplary.
Spot on. A standard to aspire to.
What about expedient? Sounds like speed.
It relates to convenience and practicality, but sometimes implies it might not be the most proper or moral way. Taking a shortcut was expedient, but perhaps not the safest option.
Practical, but maybe cutting corners. Finesse.
Skillful handling, often in a delicate or tricky situation. The negotiator handled the difficult situation with finesse. Smooth.
And fledgling.
New, inexperienced, just starting out. The fledgling artist showed great promise.
Like a baby bird.
Okay.
Fluctuate.
Change continuously, rise and fall, like stock prices fluctuate. Very common word.
And fluke.
A stroke of luck, usually surprising. Winning the lottery was a complete fluke. Pure chance.
Right. Not skill. Frivolous.
Lacking seriousness or importance. The judge dismissed the lawsuit as frivolous. Trivial.
Wasting the court's time.
Then garner means to gather or collect something, often support information or approval.
Like, her research helped garner support for the new policy.
Yeah.
Gathering that backing.
Exactly. Idiosyncrasy.
A peculiar habit or feature, unique to someone. His habit of tapping his pen was a harmless idiosyncrasy.
That's it, a little quirk. And immutable.
Unchanging over time. Permanent. The laws of physics are considered immutable.
Right. Fundamental and fixed.
Impediment. Something that blocks or hinders.
Yes, a hindrance or obstruction. A lack of education can be a significant impediment to finding employment.
A barrier. Impervious.
Not allowing fluid to pass through or unable to be affected by something. The waterproof raincoat was impervious to the rain.
Like a shield. Impetuous.
Acting quickly without thought or care. Rash. Quitting his job on a whim was an impetuous decision.
Acting before thinking. And inadvertent.
Accidental, unintentional. The error in the report was inadvertent, an honest mistake.
Oops, okay.
Incongruous means out of place, not fitting in. Modern art looked incongruous in the traditional museum.
Doesn't match the surroundings. Ingenious.
Clever, original, inventive. The new gadget featured an ingenious design. Smart.
Nice word. Innocuous.
Harmless, not likely to offend or irritate. His intended joke was actually quite innocuous. Safe and insidious. That sounds negative.
It is. Proceeding in a gradual, subtle way, but with harmful effects. The progression of the disease can be insidious, sneaky and harmful.
Okay, tricky one. Juncture.
A specific point in time, especially critical one where a decision is needed. At this crucial juncture, we need to make a decision.
A turning point. Juxtapose.
To place different things side by side to compare them or create an interesting effect. The exhibit juxtaposed modern art with classical sculptures.
Highlighting contrast. Laudable.
Deserving praise and commendation. Their efforts to improve the community were laudable. Praiseworthy, good stuff. Lethargic.
Sluggish, lacking energy or enthusiasm. He felt lethargic after the long flight. Jet lag.
Totally. Lull.
A temporary pause or quiet period. There was a brief lull in the conversation. A quiet moment.
Right.
Makeshift.
Serving as a temporary substitute usually implies lower quality. They built a makeshift shelter out of blankets and sticks. Improvised. Making do. Mired.
Stuck or entangled in a difficult situation, the project became mired in delays. Bogged down.
Not good. Mitigate.
To make something less severe, serious, or painful,
Yeah.
the company took measures to mitigate the impact of the economic downturn, reducing the harm, important for problem solving. Myopic.
Short-sighted, lacking foresight or intellectual insight.
Yeah.
Their short-sighted approach to problem solving was myopic. Can't see the big picture.
Focusing too narrowly. Nascent.
Just coming into existence and beginning to display signs of future potential. Emerging. The tech startup was still in its nascent stages.
The very beginning.
Nuance. I like this one. A subtle difference in meaning, expression, or sound.
Yeah, it's key for understanding complexity. The actor's performance captured the subtle nuances of the character's emotions, those fine shades of meaning.
Beautiful. Obfuscate. Sounds like confuse.
It means to deliberately make something unclear or obscure. The lawyer tried to obfuscate the facts. To muddy the waters?
Not being helpful. Obstinate.
stubbornly refusing to change one's opinion or course of action despite attempts to persuade. Despite the evidence, he remained obstinate in his belief. Very stubborn, headstrong, onerous.
Involving a great deal of effort, trouble, or difficulty. Burdensome. The new regulations placed an onerous burden on small businesses.
A heavy load.
Tough. Overshadow.
To appear much more prominent or important than something else. The young actor's talent threatened to overshadow the rest of the cast, stealing the spotlight.
Right.
Placate. Similar to appease.
Very similar. To make someone less angry or hostile, often by concessions, the manager tried to placate the angry customer by offering a discount, calming them down, smoothing things over. Plausible.
Seeming reasonable or probable. Believable. The scientist's theory seemed plausible based on the evidence. Makes sense. Could be true. Polarizing.
Causing strong disagreement between groups. Dividing opinion. The controversial policy proved to be highly polarizing. Creates opposing camps.
You see that a lot. Pragmatic.
Dealing with things sensibly and realistically based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. They took a pragmatic approach, focusing on what would actually work. Practical, results-oriented.
Down to earth. Precarious.
Not securely held or in position. Dangerously likely to fall or collapse. Unstable. The latter was in a precarious position. Wobbly.
Risky.
Precursor. Something that comes before.
Exactly. A forerunner. Something that happened or existed before another, often leading to it. The telephone was a precursor to modern mobile communication. Paved the way.
Got it. Predisposed.
Having a tendency or inclination towards something in advance. Susceptible. He was predisposed to heart disease due to his family history. More likely to get it. A tendency. Presumptuous.
Overstepping bounds. Failing to observe the limits of what is permitted or appropriate. Taking things for granted. It was presumptuous of him to assume he would get the promotion. Too bold? Maybe arrogant?
Assuming too much. Pristine?
In its original condition. Unspoiled. Perfect. The untouched beach was pristine. Clean. Pure.
Lovely image. Prolific.
Producing a large quantity of something, often used for writers or artists. The author was incredibly prolific, publishing several novels a year. Very productive.
Creates a lot.
Prudent means wise or careful.
Yes, acting with care and thought for the future. Showing foresight. It's always prudent to save for unexpected expenses. Sensible planning.
Smart move. Quintessential.
Representing the most perfect or typical example of a quality or class. The ultimate example. Her performance was the quintessential portrayal of the character. The perfect embodiment. The absolute essence. Redundant.
No longer needed or useful. Superfluous. Unnecessary repetition. Many of the phrases in the report were redundant, saying the same thing twice.
Cut it out, respectively.
In the order mentioned. Used to link items in two lists. Bob and Jane finished the race in 10 and 12 minutes, respectively. Bob 10, Jane 12.
Keeps things clear. Reticent.
Not revealing one's thoughts or feelings readily. Reserved, shy. He was reticent about discussing his personal life. Doesn't share much.
Keeps to themselves.
Revamp. To improve or renovate something.
Exactly. Give it a new and improved form or structure. The company decided to revamp its marketing strategy. A makeover.
Freshen it up. Rife.
Full of something, especially something undesirable or harmful. Widespread. The neighborhood was rife with noise and pollution. Lots of bad stuff. Not good. Rudimentary.
Basic. Elementary. Involving or limited to basic principles. Its first year of training covered only the rudimentary skills. Just the fundamentals.
Starting point. Savor.
To enjoy something completely, especially taste or smell, appreciate fully. Take your time to savor the beautiful sunset. Really soak it in.
Enjoy the moment. Scrupulous.
Diligent, thorough, and extremely attentive to details. Very careful and precise. The accountant was scrupulous in checking every entry. Leaves no stone unturned.
Very meticulous.
Sparse, thinly scattered.
Yes, small in number or quantity, thinly dispersed. Vegetation in the desert is sparse. Not much of it.
Spread out, sporadic.
Occurring at irregular intervals or only in a few places. Scattered, intermittent. We experienced sporadic rainfall throughout the day, on and off.
Unpredictable, subside.
Become less intense, violent, or severe. Die down. The storm winds and rain began to subside, calming down.
Getting better, succinct.
Briefly and clearly expressed. Concise. Her summary of the key points was succinct and easy to understand, short and to the point.
Efficient. Surmise.
To suppose something is true without having evidence to confirm it. To guess or infer. We can only surmise the reason for his late arrival. Educated guess. No proof, just a guess.
Tangential.
Going off topic.
Exactly. Diverging from the main point. Peripheral. The conversation drifted into tangential topics, getting sidetracked. Happens all the time. Tantamount.
Equivalent in seriousness to virtually the same as his refusal to cooperate was tantamount to an admission of guilt. Basically the same thing, have the same effect.
Timely.
Done or occurring at a favorable or useful time. Opportune. The paramedic's timely intervention saved his life. Just in time.
Good timing. Transient.
Lasting only for a short time. Impermanent. Temporary. The city has a large, transient population, people coming and going.
Not permanent. Travesty.
A false, absurd, or distorted representation of something. A mockery. The unfair trial was a travesty of justice, making a mockery of justice.
A shocking misuse.
Trivial. Unimportant.
Yes, of little value or importance. Insignificant. They argued over something quite trivial, not worth fighting about.
Like the dishes. Ubiquitous.
Present, appearing, or found everywhere. Omnipresent. Smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. They're everywhere.
Can't escape them. Unconscionable. Not right or reasonable. Shockingly unfair or unjust. The factory's inhumane working conditions were unconscionable. Morally unacceptable. Really bad. Undermine.
To lessen the effectiveness, power, or ability of, especially gradually or insidiously. Weaken. Constant criticism can undermine a person's confidence, eroding it slowly.
Damaging foundation. Underscore.
To emphasize something, highlight. The teacher used several examples to underscore the main point, stressing the importance.
Making sure you get it.
Unearth. To discover something hidden.
Yes, find something in the ground by digging, or discover something secret or lost after careful searching. Archaeologists unearthed ancient artifacts at the site, bringing it to light.
Cool discovery.
Yeah.
Unorthodox.
Contrary to what is usual, traditional, or accepted nonconformist, the school adopted some rather unorthodox teaching methods, doing things differently.
Thinking outside the box. Vestige.
A trace or remnant of something that is disappearing or no longer exists, a small remaining part. The old castle ruins are a vestige of a bygone era. Echoes of the past, a trace left behind. Volatile.
Liable to change rapidly and unpredictably, especially for the worse. Unstable. The stock market can be quite volatile, up and down quickly.
Can be risky. Warranted.
Justified or necessary for particular circumstance. Called for. The extra security was warranted given the circumstances. It was needed.
Makes sense. And the last one from this list? Winsome.
Means charming, often in an innocent or appealing way. A winsome smile.
Exactly. Appealing and engaging. Wow, that was quite a list from Espresso English.
Yeah, definitely comprehensive, very GRE focused, lots of formal and analytical words.
Absolutely. Now let's switch gears a bit and look at the story learning list. It's organized differently, isn't it? By theme.
Right. Like the first theme is communication. Words like snap.
To suddenly lose your temper. Yeah, very relatable.
Yeah. And articulate, to express yourself clearly, which is what we're aiming for.
Hopefully. Then summarize. Give the main points briefly. Exclaim. Cry out suddenly.
These feel very practical, very direct. Instruct, tell someone what to do formally. Jargon, specialized language for a group.
Ugh. Jargon. Can be tricky if you're not in the group. Plead. Make an emotional appeal. Condemn. Express strong disapproval.
And inquiry, an official investigation. Good range there just for communication.
Then they move to relationships. We get phrases like broken home.
Meaning parents are separated or divorced. And click, when you instantly like someone.
Nice feeling. Rocky. For a relationship with problems. Part. To separate. Cut ties. End a relationship completely.
Again, very useful for describing life stuff. Spouse, husband or wife, bond, develop a close connection.
Sibling, brother or sister, unmarried. On good terms or on bad terms, describing the state of a relationship.
And hospitality, being welcoming to guests. Covers a lot of ground for relationships.
Next up, homes and buildings. We see infrastructure, the basic systems, roads, power.
The foundations of society, kind of.
Yeah.
Then mansion, semi-detached house, warehouse, staircase. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, basic building blocks. Then landmark, an easily recognizable feature. Complex, like a group of buildings. Loft space under the roof.
Reconstruction, rebuilding something. And premises, the building and land used by a business, usually.
Good solid words for places. Then personality. This is fun. Eccentric.
A bit strange, unusual, but in an interesting way.
Often, yeah. Resourceful. Yeah. Good at finding solutions. Antisocial, not wanting company. Cynical, distrustful of others' motives.
Believing everyone's selfish.
Yeah.
And trustworthy, reliable, honest.
We hope. Then elated, extremely happy. Hey, we saw that on the GRE list, too.
Oh, yeah. Good crossover. Shows us a powerful word.
Definitely. Versatile, adaptable to many things, irritate to annoy someone, ruthless, showing no pity.
Ouch. And chatty talks a lot.
We all know someone chatty.
Yeah.
Describing things. Adjectives like shabby.
Worn out, poor condition, luxurious, very comfortable, expensive, the opposite.
Exactly. Defective, faulty. Monotonous, dull, repetitive, boring.
Like a monotonous job. Bland, lacking flavor or interest.
Noticeable, easy to see. Staggering, amazing, astonishingly large, like a staggering amount.
Wow. Fragrant, nice smelling. Scarce, rare, not enough of something.
And sensational, causing great excitement or interest, often used by the media.
Got it. Lots of ways to describe stuff. Finally, actions, verbs. Stamp, put your foot down hard.
Sprinkle, scatter little bits. Hunt, pursue animals, giggle, a light, silly laugh.
And glare, an angry stare.
Intense, wreck, destroy something. Grin, a wide smile. Gaze, look steadily, often with admiration or thought.
Like gazing at stars. Grasp hold firmly and escape, break free.
Phew. So comparing the two lists, it's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, the GRE list is definitely heavier on the analytical, abstract, formal side of things.
Words you'd use in essays, academic discussions, maybe formal reports. Words like ubiquitous, mitigate, convoluted.
Whereas the story learning list feels much more grounded in, well, everyday life. Communication, relationships, describing people, places, actions.
Things like snap, click, shabby, giggle, much more conversational perhaps.
Definitely. Though we saw elated on both, which is interesting. But the story learning approach, using themes and example sentences, it feels very immediate.
Yeah, showing the word in action right away. They even suggest learning by reading stories, which is a great way to see vocabulary naturally.
Right. Learning words in context, that's supposed to be much more effective than just memorizing definitions, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Seeing how a word fits into a sentence, into a narrative, it helps you understand the nuances, the connotations. It sticks better.
So for you listening, how do you actually make these words your own? It seems like active use is key.
Definitely. Reading, like story learning suggests, exposes you to words in context. Keeping a vocabulary journal is another classic tip.
Jotting down the word, its meaning, maybe the sentence you found it in.
Exactly. And crucially, try to use the words. Actively bring them into your own speaking and writing.
Even if it feels a bit awkward at first.
Yeah, don't worry about perfection initially. It's part of learning. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. They move from words you just recognize.
Your passive vocabulary.
To words you actually use confidently. Your active vocabulary.
Makes sense. It takes effort. But the payoff is clearer, more impactful communication. Being able to say exactly what you mean.
Precisely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe think about that. Consider the power of consciously growing your word bank.
How could having a richer vocabulary change not just how you speak or write, but maybe even how you perceive things, how you understand the world?
Right. What new subtleties, what new shades of meaning might open up to you, both to understand and to express yourself.
It's kind of an ongoing adventure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Linguistic discovery. Hopefully this has given you a good starting point or some new ideas.
Welcome to the deep dive. You know how it is you want to really get to the core of something, cut through the noise without drowning in info? That's what we do here. And today we're focusing, really zooming in for you on something that seems niche at first glance. It's vocabulary for the TOEFL exam.
Exactly. And the source we're looking at is this list from Prep Scholar. It's called Prep Scholar's Essential Vocab Series Complete Word List. It's got 327 words they say are crucial for the test.
Right.
But here's the interesting part, and why it's useful for, well, almost anyone interested in English. You might think, okay, test prep, but this list, it's basically a crash course in the kind of words you constantly encounter in academic settings, formal writing, that sort of thing.
So not just for test takers then?
Not at all. If you want to sharpen your understanding, express yourself more clearly, whether it's for TOEFL or just better communication, this list is genuinely valuable.
Absolutely. It's like a shortcut to understanding those more sophisticated words you hear in serious discussions or read in detail articles. Okay, let's dive in. The list seems to start with some sort of foundational ideas like quantity, words like abundant, ample, adequate, copious, and then the opposite, paucity. getting the nuances here feels pretty important, doesn't it? It changes how you picture the scale of things.
Oh, massively. Take abundant and copious. Hey, they both mean a lot,
Yep.
right? But copious, it often suggests an almost overflowing amount, like copious notes or copious rainfall.
Right, rainfall is a good example. Abundant rain sounds like plenty, but copious rain sounds like maybe too much, potential flooding.
Exactly. It hints at that huge volume. Then you have ample and adequate, both mean enough, but ample suggests a bit more than just the bare minimum, a comfortable amount.
Like ample time, more than you strictly need.
Precisely. Whereas adequate is just sufficient.
Right.
It meets the requirement, full stop.
And positive.
That's clearly a lack, a scarcity. So yeah, understanding these helps you gauge resource levels, availability. It adds precision.
Okay. Then the list moves to words about change in quantity, like accumulate, augment, deplete, diminish, shrink. It's not just bigger or smaller, is it? There's a how involved.
Totally. Think about accumulate versus augment. Both mean increase, but accumulate often feels gradual, like dust accumulating or, wealth accumulating over years.
A slow buildup.
Yeah. Augment can feel more like a direct addition or enhancement, like augmenting a salary with a bonus or augmenting a collection.
So adding something specific to make it bigger or better.
Right. On the flip side, deplete usually means using something up significantly, maybe to a worrying degree. Depleting natural resources, for example.
Sounds more serious than just reducing.
It often is. Diminish and shrink feel, less drastic generally. Popularity diminishing, a company shrinking its workforce perhaps. It implies reduction, but maybe more gradual or less total than deplete.
That distinction is useful. Okay, still in this first section, we hit words about being correct. Accurate, erroneous, precise, and valid. These seem fundamental for anything academic or, frankly, professional.
Oh, absolutely critical. Accurate is, generally correct, hitting the target. But precise adds another layer. It's about exactness, the level of detail.
So you could be accurate overall, but not very precise.
Exactly. Imagine measuring something. You might get the general size right, that's accurate, but precise measurements give you the exact millimeters, vital in science, engineering.
And erroneous.
Simply means wrong, containing an error, straightforward.
Okay. What about valid? How's that different from accurate?
Ah, good question. Valid is more about the logic, the reasoning, the soundness of an argument or a method. Your facts might be accurate, but if the way you connect them is flawed, your conclusion isn't valid.
Ah, okay. So validity is about the structure of the argument itself.
Spot on. Like in research, the methodology needs to be valid for the results to be trustworthy, even if individual data points seem accurate.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. The next section seems to be about relationships, connections, proximity. We have adjacent, coalesce, cohesion, integrate, proximity.
Now, different ways things can be near each other or come together. Adjacent is simple enough, just means next to, like adjacent rooms.
Or adjacent seats.
Yeah. And proximity is the general state of being near. Physical proximity, maybe temporal proximity.
Okay, but then coalesce and integrate sound more active, like things joining up.
They are. Coalesce often suggests different things merging together to form a single new whole. Think of small streams coalescing into a river, or ideas coalescing into a plan.
Like melting together.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas integrate usually implies bringing parts together into a system, but the parts might still retain some identity, like integrating new members into a team or integrating different technologies.
So integrate feels more structured, maybe.
Often, yes. The parts work together but are still distinct components.
Yeah.
And cohesion, that's the force or the state of sticking together. Team cohesion, social cohesion, unity.
Got it. That difference between coalesce and integrate is subtle but important. All right, next up. Agreement and disagreement. Words like concur, conflict, contradict, antagonize, quarrel.
Oh yeah, the vocabulary of getting along or not getting along.
Exact.
Concur is just a slightly more formal way to say agree.
Yeah, okay.
Conflict and quarrel both mean disagreement. Conflict can be broader, like conflicting ideas or interests. Quarrel often sounds more personal, maybe a bit petty.
Like a verbal fight?
Yeah. Contradict is specific, saying the opposite of what someone else stated, directly challenging a fact or statement.
Antagonize, that sounds more deliberate.
It is. It means to provoke hostility or anger intentionally, trying to get a rise out of someone. You see that in debates sometimes.
Definitely. Okay, and related to this, there's support and opposition, advocate, boost, fortify, but then Hinder, impair, oppose, opponent, resist, safeguard. That's quite a range.
It really covers the spectrum, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From actively supporting something to actively working against it. To advocate is to publicly support or recommend something. An advocate for human rights, for instance.
Like championing a cause.
Exactly. Boost and fortify both mean strengthen or support. Boosting morale, fortifying defenses.
Then the other side.
Hinder and impair mean to obstruct or weaken something. Bad weather hindering travel. And injury impairing ability.
Okay.
Oppose is simply to be against something. An opponent
Right.
is the person or group on the other side.
Right.
To resist is to withstand pressure or force. Resisting change, resisting an attack, and a safeguard is a protective measure, like a safety regulation is a safeguard.
Understanding these is key to figuring out like the dynamics of a situation. Who's pushing, who's pulling.
Precisely.
All right, let's talk about change again, but maybe more about how things are changed. Modification, adjustment, we have adjust, amend, modify, refine, reform, regulate.
Yeah, this is about tweaking and controlling things. Adjust and modify are pretty general terms for making changes.
Like adjusting the volume or modifying a design.
Right. Amend and reform usually imply changing for the better. Amend often means making minor corrections or additions, like amending a document or a law.
Like the Bill of Rights consists of amendments.
Good example. Reform, though, usually suggests a bigger overhaul, more fundamental change aimed at improvement, reforming the tax system, for instance.
A more significant change.
Definitely. To refine means to improve something by making small changes, making it more elegant or precise, refining an argument, refining a technique.
Polishing it.
Yes. And regulate means to control something with rules or laws, regulating an industry.
Okay. Then we get words describing the lifespan of actions. Beginning, middle, end. Cease, commence, continuously, endure, initial, persist, proceed, subsequent, terminal, transition.
This is basically the narrative toolkit, right? How you describe any process. Commence is a formal word for begin. Initial means the first one.
Start line.
Yep. Cease means to stop. Terminal often means final, the end point, like a terminal illness or a terminal station.
End of a line.
Exactly. Continuously means without any interruption, nonstop.
Whereas persist.
Persist means to continue doing something even when it's difficult or opposed, showing determination.
Keep going despite the odds.
Right. Proceed just means to continue, often after a pause. Shall we proceed?
Okay.
Subsequent means coming after something else in time or order. The initial meeting and subsequent discussions.
Following on.
Yes. Endure means to last or survive through a difficult time. Enduring hardship.
And transition.
That's the process of changing from one state or condition to another, transitioning to a new job, the transition from winter to spring.
A shift. Got it. This whole group is essential for like telling any kind of story or explaining a sequence.
Absolutely.
And then rounding out the section on change, we have words for things that don't quite fit the pattern. Anomaly, deviate, disproportionate.
Yeah, the outliers, the exceptions. An anomaly is something unusual, unexpected, something that deviates from the standard. A blip in the data.
A weird result?
Kind of. To deviate is the verb to stray from the norm or the expected path.
Okay.
And disproportionate means out of proportion, unbalanced. Like a disproportionate response or a disproportionate allocation of funds. One part getting way more or less than seems fair or logical.
Imbalanced. Okay. Moving into expressing opinions and attitudes. This seems important for understanding tone. First, clarity versus, lack of clarity. Ambiguous, clarified, decipher, garbled, transparent.
Yeah, how clear is the communication?
Yeah.
Transparent means easy to see through, open, honest, like transparent pricing.
No hidden stuff.
Right. To clarify is to make something clear, easier to understand.
Please clarify that point.
Exactly. To decipher is needed when something isn't clear, figuring out bad handwriting or, deciphering a coded message.
Working it out.
On the unclear side, ambiguous means having more than one possible meaning, leading to uncertainty. An ambiguous statement.
You're not sure exactly what they mean?
Correct. And garbled is when the message itself is distorted, mixed up, hard to understand, like a garbled radio transmission.
Okay. Then we get some pretty strong words. Judgment, disapproval, censure, berate, rebuke, reproach, vilify. These all sound quite negative.
They definitely are. These are words for strong criticism.
Sure.
Censure, rebuke, and reproach all mean express disapproval. Rebuke often feels sharper, more direct.
Like telling someone off?
Sort of. To berate is even stronger. It means to scold someone angrily and at length, really laying into them.
Ouch.
Yeah. And vilify is about attacking someone's reputation, speaking or writing about them in an abusively disparaging way, making them out to be a villain.
Like character assassination.
Pretty much. You see that in politics, unfortunately.
True. Okay, last in this section. Doubt and certainty. Assume, cognizant, indisputable, infer, speculate, suspicious. How sure are we?
That's the question these words address. To assume or speculate is to suppose something without definite proof. Guessing, basically, though maybe with some basis.
Educated guess, perhaps.
Maybe. To infer is a bit different. It's drawing a conclusion based on evidence and reasoning, even if it's not explicitly stated. Reading between the lines.
Deduction?
Yeah. To be cognizant is simply to be aware of something, to have knowledge of it.
Like we are cognizant of the risks.
Perfect. Indisputable means it's undeniable, absolutely certain, cannot be argued against. An indisputable fact.
Arc solid.
And suspicious implies doubt or distrust. Thinking something is wrong or someone is dishonest without necessarily having proof yet.
Having a bad feeling about it.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, section 5 looks at importance and influence. Words like core, crucial, fundamental, integral, major, primary, significant.
These are always to say important, but with slightly different flavors. Core, fundamental, primary often point to the absolute basics, the essential foundation, the core issue, fundamental principles, primary reason.
The bedrock.
Yeah. Crucial and integral stress necessity. Something is crucial if it's decisive or critical. Something is integral if it's essential to make the whole complete. Like this part is integral to the machine.
Can't do without it.
Right. Major and significant indicate considerable importance or size or effect.
Yeah.
A major discovery, a significant increase.
Big deals.
Exactly.
Then, relatedly, words about effect, impact, influence, effect, and the opposite, ineffective.
Yeah, what difference does it make? Impact and influence are nouns referring to the effect, the impact of the storm, the influence of peers.
Okay.
Affect is the verb, to produce a change in something. The weather affected our plans.
Got it. Effect with an A is the verb.
Usually, yes. And ineffective just means it didn't work, didn't produce the desired result, an ineffective strategy.
Simple enough. And rounding out this section, advantage and disadvantage. Advantage, adverse, detrimental, exploit. Clear positive, negative vibes here.
Very clear. An advantage is obviously a benefit, something helpful.
Gives you an edge.
Yep. Adverse and detrimental both mean harmful or unfavorable. Adverse effects, detrimental consequences, both negative.
Bad news.
Right. And exploit is interesting. It can mean to make use of something, like exploiting resources, but it very often carries a negative meaning.
Taking unfair advantage of a situation or person. Exploiting workers.
So context is key for exploit.
Absolutely crucial.
Okay, final big section. This looks like it's all about people, behavior, character, skills, effort. Lots of descriptive words here. Personality traits first. Wow, quite a list. Adamant, aggressive, ambitious, brash, brusque, eloquent, hasty, hostile, intrepid, irascible, irresolute, leery, morose, negligent, nonchalant, parsimonious, pragmatic, superficial, squalid, and upbeat.
That's a mouthful. Yeah, a real spectrum of ways to describe someone. Let's see. Adamant is stubborn, unyielding, refusing to change their mind.
Dug in.
Aggressive and hostile are unfriendly, forceful, maybe ready for a fight.
Yep.
Ambitious, strong desire to succeed. We know that one.
Brash and brusque. They're about being kind of rude or abrupt. Brash is often overly bold and tactless. Brusque is more curt, short, maybe unfriendly in manner.
Like snapping at someone.
Could be. Eloquent is the opposite, speaking beautifully, persuasively,
Smooth talker.
in a good way. Hasty means acting too quickly, maybe carelessly. Rushing things.
Rare.
Similar, yeah. Intrepid means fearless, brave, like an intrepid explorer.
Adventurous.
Definitely. Irascible, easily angered, grumpy.
Short fuse.
Exactly. Irresolute means indecisive. Can't make up their mind.
Hesitant.
Leery means cautious or wary. Suspicious, being leery of a stranger.
Untrusting.
Yeah. Morose is gloomy, sullen, ill-tempered.
You're like.
Good one. Negligent means failing to take proper care, like negligence leading to an accident.
Careless.
Yes. Nonchalant is coolly unconcerned, indifferent, acting like nothing bothers them.
Playing it cool.
Kind of. Parsimonious means stingy, overly frugal, doesn't like spending money.
Tight-fisted.
Yep. Pragmatic means practical, realistic, focused on results rather than theories.
Down to earth.
Right. Superficial means concerned only with the surface, lacking depth. Superficial interests.
Not deep.
No. Squalid means dirty, unpleasant, often due to poverty or neglect. Squalid living conditions.
Grim.
Very. And finally, upbeat, cheerful, optimistic.
The positive end of the spectrum. That's a lot of ways to describe people.
It really shows the richness of the language for capturing personality nuances.
Okay, then we have words about skill. How good someone is at something. Adept, competent, expertise, incompetent, knack, mediocre, proficient.
Right, so adept and proficient both mean skilled, very capable. Adept sometimes suggests a natural skillfulness, too.
Good at it.
Yeah. Competent means having enough skill to do something satisfactorily. Maybe not brilliant, but gets the job done.
Beats the standard. Mm-hmm.
Expertise is the highest level specialized skill or knowledge. Real mastery.
Top of their game.
Exactly. Knack is a natural talent or skill for doing something easily, like having a knack for languages.
It just comes naturally.
Right. Mediocre means just average, ordinary, not very good, pretty much. And incompetent is the opposite of competent, lacking the necessary skill or ability.
Can't do it right.
Unfortunately, yes.
And the last little group here, effort and difficulty. Arduous, cumbersome, ease, efficient, laborious.
How hard is the work? Arduous and laborious both mean requiring a lot of effort, difficult and tiring. An arduous journey, laborious task.
Hard work.
Definitely. Cumbersome means awkward to handle or manage, often because of size or complexity. Cumbersome procedures, cumbersome equipment.
Clunky, maybe.
Good word for it. Ease, of course, means lack of difficulty.
Yeah.
Doing something with ease.
Simple.
And efficient means working well without wasting time or energy. Getting the most output for the least input.
Productive.
Highly productive, yes.
So that's the list, or at least the categories we've pulled out. As we wrap up this deep dive, it really strikes me, again, how this goes way beyond just a test.
Absolutely. You look at these words from Prep Scholar's list, and you see the building blocks for expressing really complex ideas, for understanding subtle distinctions in arguments, in descriptions.
It's about precision, isn't it? Choosing the right word, not just a word.
Exactly. And in building this kind of vocabulary, well, it empowers you. It helps you not just understand what you read and hear on a deeper level, but also to articulate your own thoughts much more effectively.
It really makes you think, what if you consciously tried to weave, say, 5 or 10 of these words into how you speak and write? How might that subtly shift your own thinking and communication?
That's a fascinating takeaway for you, the listener. Think about it. Are there other areas, maybe completely unrelated, where diving deep into a specific set of terms or concepts could unlock a surprisingly broad understanding? Perhaps, as we said earlier, revisiting that full Prep Scholar list might spark some ideas. Or maybe looking into the specialized language of a field you're curious about.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. This focused approach to vocabulary really highlights a powerful way to learn. Thanks for digging into this with me.
My pleasure. It was interesting.